Jesus warned us. When this happens, you'll know it's too late. The final sign before Jesus' return. What if I told you there's one final sign, just one, that Jesus said would show us it's too late? Not almost there, not getting close, too late. You might be thinking, well, I'd better know what that sign is. You're right, you do need to know, because once it happens, there won't be time left to prepare. When the disciples finally got Jesus alone, away from the noise, away from the crowds, they asked him something they didn't dare say in public. They were desperate to know, what are the signs? How will we know the end is near? And this time, Jesus didn't answer with a parable. He looked them in the eye and gave them a direct, clear response. No riddles, no mysteries, just straight truth. But what he said next, it shocked them. And if you're paying attention, it should shake us too. Yes, in Revelation, Jesus gives a long, intense vision of the end of days. But here, on the Mount of Olives, he gives a fast, focused rundown, a warning list, not just for them, but for us. Because what if the signs he gave have already started? What if some of them are already happening right now? Matthew 24 reads, "Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, 'Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?' Jesus told them, 'Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come.'" Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you might flip everything you thought you knew about the end times. Jesus gave us 4 signs, 4 specific markers that point to his return. But here's the part most people miss. After the 4th sign comes the last and powerful sign that is greater than them all. Sign number 1, disasters in the world. Jesus said there would be wars, famines, and earthquakes. And that's happening, right? It's been happening for thousands of years. But look closer. These disasters aren't just continuing, they're intensifying. The earth is groaning. Nations are trembling. And humanity feels like it's holding its breath. But here's the twist most people miss. That's only the first sign, and it's not even the most important. Sign number 2, something is happening inside the church. This is where things get personal. Jesus didn't just talk about chaos in the world, he warned about collapse inside the church. And just like the first sign had 3 parts, this one does too. Brace yourself. Part 1, Jesus said, "You will be hated by all nations," not just disliked, hated, worldwide. Christianity will become offensive, dangerous, targeted, and we're watching that hostility rise right now. Part 2, he said that many will fall away. The love of most will grow cold. What does that mean? It means the church will shrink. Not in spirit, but in number. People who were once sitting in pews will disappear. They'll walk away. Why? Because true faith is being tested, shaken, refined. Part 3. Here's the surprise. Jesus says, in the midst of all this, the gospel will be preached to every nation. That sounds impossible, right? How can a smaller church have a louder voice? But that's the point. A smaller, purified church, stripped of comfort and pride, becomes powerful, focused, undeniable. The world may try to silence it, but it will still speak. Now hold on, because this is where deception enters the story. Jesus warns of false prophets, and they won't look like wolves, they'll sound like friends. Their message? Don't worry, everything's fine. Peace is coming. Revival is here. The church is in good hands. But Jesus says that's a lie. They promise comfort when God is calling us to endurance. They promise peace when Jesus is preparing us for persecution. They tell us what we want to hear instead of what we need to hear. And here's the most terrifying part. These false prophets may be the reason many fall away. They'll twist the truth, distort the gospel, and cause people to leave when things get hard. So what do we do? What does Jesus say to us, those still standing, still listening, still holding on? He says this, "Whoever endures to the end shall be saved." That takes us to the third sign of the end times, and it's one most people miss: Jerusalem's distress. At first glance, it might seem small, local, even avoidable, but don't be fooled. Jesus quotes the prophet Daniel here, and Daniel didn't just make predictions. He described a terrifying figure, a man unlike any the world has ever seen, and Daniel calls him something strange, something ominous. The abomination of desolation. He mentions this figure 3 times. Why? What's the big deal about this man? Why would Jesus point us back to Daniel during his own warning about the end? Because this man isn't just another tyrant. He's not just a world leader. He's the one who walks into the most sacred city on earth, Jerusalem, the city of God, and dares to declare himself God. He doesn't negotiate. He dominates. He doesn't suggest. He demands worship. He sets up his throne in the holy place, and everything changes. This isn't just about one city anymore. It becomes a global crisis, one that centers in Jerusalem but radiates through every nation, every system, every heart. And just when you think that's the peak of it all, it gets worse. Because Jesus says there's a 4th sign, and it comes immediately after this one. And this is the moment that silences all the false messiahs, all the deception, all the noise. Because no one can fake what comes next. There won't be time to argue or analyze or speculate because the lights go out. All of them. The sun, gone. The stars fall like dead leaves. The moon, no longer shining. No more natural light, just darkness. And then, a sudden flash, like lightning tearing across the sky. The Bible doesn't whisper about this moment, it shouts it. Isaiah says, "The heavens will be rolled up like a carpet. All their stars will fall like withered leaves from the vine." Another verse compares it to a scroll snapping shut in the heavens. Can you imagine? Stepping outside only to see nothing. No moonlight, no stars, just stillness, just shadow. And then, boom, a brilliant light explodes across the sky, not from the sun, not from the moon, from Him. And in that moment, Christians will know this is it. They'll cry. Not a drill, not another birth pain. This is the return. God flips the switch off in the heavens to set the stage for His Son's re-entry, not hidden, not symbolic, but visible, violent, unmistakable. His judgment will be swift, final, and inescapable. What a terrible picture of destruction we see in chapter 24, a scary picture of the world ruined and burned. Now we've arrived at a moment that changes everything. Isaiah's vision of the day of the Lord. And let me tell you, this isn't just any day. This is the day, the moment when the Lord himself returns to earth, not in secret, not in silence, but in blazing power and unstoppable glory. Isaiah 13 says this, "Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel with both wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he will destroy its sinners from it. For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened in its going forth, and the moon will not cause its light to shine." Let's pause right there. This isn't poetic fluff. This isn't symbolic language. This is cosmic collapse. This is the entire order of creation unraveling. Isaiah wasn't the only one who saw this. Jesus himself confirmed it centuries later. Matthew 24:29-30, Jesus says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven." Did you catch that? Isaiah and Jesus speaking the same exact language. A world plunged into darkness moments before the King arrives. Now here's the part that might give you chills. This day, the day of the Lord, isn't just some far-off idea. It's the turning point of all human history. Everything leads to this. The rise of nations, the fall of empires, every prophecy, every promise, it all points to this one moment. When God comes to judge evil, rescue his people, and make all things right. And you can almost hear it in the air right now, can't you? The signs are lining up. The world is shaking. Hearts are stirring. Even people who don't believe in the Bible are saying something feels off. Could it be because this moment is closer than we think? Here's the real question. Are we ready? Because this is not the time to sleep through history. This isn't the time to scroll, laugh, and move on. This is the time to wake up, to open our eyes, to see what Isaiah saw, to understand what Jesus said, because it's happening. And once it begins, there's no hitting pause. And if you think the Lord's return means immediate peace and comfort, hold on. Because before peace, there's fire. Let's go to Isaiah 66:15-16. "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword the Lord will judge all flesh." That's intense. That's not the soft, glowing Jesus we see in paintings. That's the King of Heaven arriving in righteous fire. So let's ask a question we don't ask enough. Why fire? Why judgment? Why not just skip to peace? Because fire purifies. It burns away corruption. It cleanses what's filthy. It removes what's decayed so something new can live. Before the world can be made new, it must be cleansed. Now, I know that sounds scary. And for many, it will be. But here's the hope. For those who belong to the Lord, this isn't the end, this is the beginning. Because after the fire, after the judgment, after the shaking, comes something more beautiful than we've ever imagined. Isaiah 65:17 says, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered or come to mind." God is going to make everything new. But first, he's going to burn away everything that's evil, everything that's wrong. It's like a forest fire that clears the land, so that beautiful new growth can come. This is not just about fire. It's about God keeping His promise, a promise to heal the world and bring true peace. And Isaiah saw it all before it ever happened. Yes, there is fire. Yes, there is judgment. But for those who love God, there is also joy, because His return means that the world will be set right. And that's the greatest promise of all. All right, we've seen the warning. We've heard about the judgment. But now, Isaiah gives us something that lifts our hearts. Even after everything falls apart, even when the world is shaken, Isaiah sees a future filled with light. Let's read it. Isaiah 24 verse 23 says, "Then the moon will be disgraced and the sun ashamed. For the Lord of hosts will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and before His elders gloriously." Whoa! Did you catch that? Isaiah says the moon and sun, the brightest things we know, will pale in comparison to God's glory. And where will God reign? Jerusalem, right where so much of the world's attention is today. This tells us something amazing. Even though judgment comes, it's not the end of the story. God wins. His light shines. His kingdom comes. He doesn't just destroy. He restores. He rules with love. He brings peace. Now let me ask you, do you want to be part of that kingdom? Because it's not just for some people far away. It's for you. The Bible says in Romans 10:13, "For whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." That's hope. That's truth. That's what Isaiah's prophecy leads to, a chance to know God and be safe under His rule. Then He comes on the clouds back to planet Earth, and we meet Him. We are not meeting in an earthly stadium because there isn't one large enough to accommodate such a large crowd. We'll reach Him in the air, and that'll suffice. Isn't that a fantastic prospect? At this point, history as we know it is over. The battles have been fought. The judgments have fallen. The enemies of God have been crushed. And now, John turns the page. What he sees next isn't just a prophecy. It's a glimpse of forever. We're no longer talking about what will happen on this earth. We're stepping into what comes after, eternity. Something breathtaking is about to unfold. John says in Revelation 21, "And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God." Can you picture that? A city, not built by men, not born from bricks and mortar, but designed by God Himself, coming down from heaven. And it doesn't stop there. Then John hears a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the tabernacle of God is among men. He will live among them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes." Pause for a moment. Let that hit you. No more pain. No more sorrow. No more death. No more crying. Every disappointment you've carried, every moment you felt broken, every tear you cried in secret, wiped away forever. The old order of things, gone. A city unlike anything the world has ever known. Descending from heaven, shining with the glory of God. The New Jerusalem. Its brilliance is like a precious gem, clear, radiant, alive with divine light. This isn't fantasy. This isn't myth. This is the future. And here's what might be even more breathtaking. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. No sun, no moon, no night. God Himself lights up eternity. And unlike now, where darkness comes every evening and rest is required, There, we'll never tire, never sleep, never feel fear when night falls, because it never will. And the nations? They'll bring their glory into this city. Kings, peoples, cultures, each honoring the Lamb in the way they were created to do. And still, one more line cuts deep. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful. Then Jesus gives a very simple statement about a fig tree. And this is where many Christians have gone astray. He says, "Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near." Jesus is telling us that when you notice all these events happen, you know that we are there. Now, that analogy of the fig tree is not an allegory. It is a straightforward analogy from everyday experiences, such as Jesus often presented in his teaching. You see the fig tree doing this, you say the summer is coming, and it will come. In the same style, when you notice these four signs, you know that summer is coming. Sadly, people have read it as an allegory. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. Two men will be working together in the field. One will be taken, the other left. Two women will be grinding flour at the mill. One will be taken, the other left. So you too must keep watch, for you don't know what day your Lord is coming. Understand this. If a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put that servant in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks, "My master won't be back for a while"? And he begins beating the other servants, partying, and getting drunk. The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 24:37-51. In the remainder of this sermon, Jesus goes on to three parables, which are the wise virgins whose lamps were still burning when the bridegroom came, the foolish bridesmaids whose lamps had gone out, and the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. They had gone away to try to get some oil, but they had missed the bridegroom's arrival and thus were unable to attend the wedding. Then he moved on to the parable of the talents, in which some people received 10 talents, others 5, and then someone received none. The master left and returned, asking, "Now what have you done with the talents I've left with you?" "I've got another 10, the man with 10 said. "I've got another 5, the man with 5 said. "I haven't done anything about it," said the man who had 1. "I buried it because I know you're a hard man who reaps where he hasn't sown and wants payment from me." What a horrible thing to say. We look at what Jesus said and what the master said to him after that. The final passage is not a parable, but rather a straight prediction involving an analogy of sheep and goats. He finished that parable with dividing nations, everybody, and telling them why he divided them, because those who are on his left hand are those who ignored Christ in Christians. Insofar as they didn't help the least of these, his brothers, they were doing it not to him. But to the people on his right, he said, You saw Christ in my brethren, and inasmuch as you did it to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. He is not dividing people into those who did philanthropy and those who didn't. The key is the meaning of the word brethren. When Christ said brethren, he always meant his own followers, "Go and tell my brethren that I have risen from the dead." In the teaching of Jesus, brethren is a key word. It means those who follow me. He is simply saying whatever you have done to Christians or not done for them was done to me or for me, or not for me. Their attitude toward Christ is revealed by their attitude to Christians, and that is the principle on which they are divided. Now let us consider all that we have seen in the passage. First, there is a warning that nobody has God's diary, that not even Jesus knew the date of his return. Angels didn't know it, and no man knew it. We should have a healthy ignorance of the date of his return. Nearer the time, as we watch for the signs, we will know. Mark 13:32. No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Did you notice that one word appeared in all three parables? The parable of the home, the parable of the virgins, and the parable of the talents. The householder was a long time returning. The bridegroom was a long time coming, and the person who gave the talents was gone for a long time. He is looking for your faithfulness when he was away a long time. That is what he wants. He will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." There will be this separation in his coming between the faithful who have continued to do what he has left them to do, those who have every day remembered that he is coming back and who have kept to the job and endured the suffering and been his good and faithful servants, and those who, because he has not come soon, have fallen into bad ways. Their lamp has gone out and they no longer shine for Jesus, and they have buried their talents. In the book of Proverbs, we are warned that where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Proverbs 29:18. NIV, or perish, KJV. There are two main objectives of the end-time church. God has in view as he brings about the restoration of the church. Let's look first at God's purpose to restore unity to the church, or bring the church into unity. The church has a task to complete before Jesus can come back. Matthew 24:14 reads, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." All four Gospels conclude with this commission to the apostles and through them to the church universal. Disciples are to be made from every nation. It is God's desire and intention to have within his family humans from every tribe and language and people and nation. Revelation 5:9, 7:9. Revelation 5:9. And they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation." Revelation 7:9. After this, I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. Let us examine the great commission of Jesus Christ to his disciples after his resurrection. Jesus came and spoke to them, the disciples, saying, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" Matthew 28:18-20. There is a critical word here, therefore. We must never ignore the word therefore when we find it in Scripture. When you find a therefore in the Bible, you need to ask what it's there for. Jesus says, "All authority has been given to me. Go therefore." Why therefore? The authority was given by God the Father to Jesus, the Son, after his death and resurrection. Jesus, in turn, here transmits that authority to his disciples. In other words, he is saying, all authority was given to me. Now you go and exercise that authority on my behalf. The authority is vested in my name. As you go in my name, you have my authority.
In the Bible, Jesus is called many names. He's called the Lamb of God because he gave his life for us. He's called the Good Shepherd because he leads us with love. But there's another name, a side of Jesus that people often miss. And this name reveals the side of Jesus the world tries to ignore, the one that demands a decision from all of us. Let's read it together. Revelation 19 verse 11 says, "Now I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and makes war." Wait, judges and makes war? Yes. This is Jesus as the king, the warrior, the judge of the world. After the resurrection of the witnesses, the final judgments of God will be unleashed. The Antichrist will double down on his reign of terror. The final battle, the Battle of Armageddon, will be set in motion. The countdown begins here. What unfolds next is written, and it's more real than we've ever imagined. And from this moment on, the world will never be the same again. This is the turning point for all humanity. And what you do with it could determine your eternity. This isn't just about the past. What we're about to see has everything to do with the return of Jesus himself. But here's the thing. No matter how powerful the Antichrist appears, his time is running out. The bridegroom arrives. But what a sight! This is a side of Jesus that no one has seen before. He's complex, and now we're seeing him in a completely new way. One thing is clear. While Jesus was not a fighter during his first visit to earth, he will be when he comes again. You can't put Jesus in a box or label him as just one thing. He's a warrior when he needs to be. The Son of God goes forth to war. The first time Jesus came to earth, he rode a donkey. That symbolized peace. But the second time, he won't be on a donkey. He'll be on a horse, the mount of a warrior. He's coming to fight. The difference between his two comings is this. The first time, he came to save and heal. The second time, he's coming to judge and fight. If you can't see both of these sides of Jesus, then you don't fully know him yet. You've only seen part of who he is, and your view of him is too small. This may stretch you, and some people feel so uncomfortable with this side of Jesus that they try to avoid it by going back to the Gospels. But you can't do that. If you do, you're running away from Jesus. And if you turn away now, you might miss the most important truth of your life. What happens next will demand a response. Let's look at this picture of him. First, look at the horse. It's a war horse, a charger, not a donkey. A donkey isn't useful in battle, but a horse is. He has an army with him too. Look at his titles: Faithful and True. He keeps his promises and his word. Look at his purpose. He's coming to judge and make war in righteousness. Some people laugh at the idea of a just war, but here it is, the first and maybe the only truly just war in history. This war will be righteous. Now look at his appearance. His eyes are flaming with fire. Nothing is hidden from those eyes, and they burn with anger. He has many crowns on his head, showing his complete authority and sovereignty. Look at his names. One is the Word of God, and another is a name we don't even know. This shows a new part of his character that requires a new name. Look at his clothes. A robe that's a mix of white and red. White linen stained with blood. Sometimes, when I take communion and see the white bread and the red wine, I think of Jesus who's coming again. The same colors, white and red, remind us of his return. Look at his army behind him. During his time on earth, Jesus said, "Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels?" That's 12,000 troops. At that time, he didn't use them, but now he will, against men. Look at his weapons, a sword and a rod. The sword comes from his mouth. Jesus fights with his words, and his words can heal or destroy. Above all, look at his title, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. No matter how many kings have existed, he's the supreme king. I remember watching the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. At one point, she was handed the Bible and told that it was the only law she was subject to. Here is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God. In other words, even though she was queen, her authority was under someone greater, God. No one is higher than Jesus. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. What an amazing picture of Jesus! Here's the interesting part. This picture is what the Jews hoped was happening on Palm Sunday. They got one thing wrong, though, the timing. Many think they misunderstood Jesus, but they didn't. They knew their Bibles and believed God would send a conqueror to save them from their enemies. They knew God promised to set Jerusalem free. The only thing they got wrong was when it would happen. When Jesus came riding in on the donkey that day, they didn't realize he wasn't coming yet to restore the kingdom to Israel. So they shouted, "Hosanna," which means, "Save us now," and "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Those words come from a passage where God promises to fight their enemies and defeat them. They weren't wrong to shout that. They just had the wrong time. Jesus couldn't defeat the enemies until he first came to die for them. That's what they misunderstood. When Jesus left the earth at the Ascension, his followers asked him, "Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom to Israel?" They wanted to know when he would fulfill that promise. Jesus didn't say, "I'm never going to do that. You have it all wrong." Instead, he said, "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority. He will do it, but not yet." This is where many people have misunderstood Jesus. They thought he chose a donkey because he would never fight. But that's not true. It was because it wasn't yet God's time to restore the kingdom. On Palm Sunday, they hoped he would take action, but it wasn't the right time. Now, in this passage, he comes to do what they had been waiting for. A very humbling thought that we can have is that the way we see Jesus in the movies and popular shows like The Chosen will not be the way we will see him again. The next time Jesus is seen, he will be very different. His appearance will be different, and he will have a new mission to fulfill. Many people wonder what Jesus looks like now and how he sounds. Amazingly, the Bible provides us the answers to this in very unique verses. We see our insight in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation stands out from the other books of the New Testament because of its unique message. It not only addresses the church of the first century, to whom it was originally written, but it also has a message for the church across various ages, especially for those living during the end times who will witness the second coming of Christ. The Apostle John wrote a unique book, which is one of the few he contributed to the New Testament. This was his last book, written just before he passed away. The book's title, Revelation, comes from its primary content, which describes the manifestation of Jesus Christ to the people living on earth during the final days. The throne of God was the focal point of many of the visions reported by Jewish mystics and apocalyptic seers. But Revelation opens with Jesus as the revealer. John was to document the things that he had seen. John sees a powerful Jesus that does not compare to any typical man.